all about efficiency.
Already.
All right, I'd like to call this HR committee meeting to order. Kathy, would you take roll, please?
Lee,
Here.
Walther,
Here?
Hampshire,
Here.
All right, pledge. Jude, you want to do the pledge tonight?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Just dive right in here. We've got a proposal from Clement Nelson's on HR consulting. I'll hand it over to Timmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome HR Committee of 2022. During the budget process, we were looking at hiring, or we had in the chute an HR person. I think most council people and certainly the administration realizes that as we have grown, we're in upwards of 50 people. The current HR department is made up of myself and Mr. Nicholson. That is incredibly common, and I will talk a little bit about that in a second. But one of the ideas was to take the approach that we just took with Montrose, and that was hiring a consultant instead of an individual to run our HR department. I went through the process of asking probably 5 or 6 different companies. They all wanted to do payroll in association with handling our HR process. And I don't think, of course, Mr. Nicholson is in Washington DC today, but that's something that we did not want to give up as part of an agreement. Clemens Nelson came to us as a recommendation from Mifflin Township, and they said these guys are extremely good. It's an a la carte. They'll do all variety of HR functions for you, and they do not necessarily make payroll part of it. I will say the reasons that most of those companies wanted payroll to be part of it is because they take a slice of it, and it costs more money, for lack of a better term. We came up with the Clemens Nelson services for public sector employees that everybody has in front of them. I emailed this morning as well, I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. And in a leadership moment, basically, leadership directed me to pursue this as a possibility. We asked for the management consultant agreement, which is attached or separate stapled item. That was their dollar amounts. What led or gave me pause was the fact that you see there a $3,800 monthly fee, a little less than $50,000 a year. I think it's 46. 46.2, thank you. And immediately below that is a listing of per hour charges. And that gave me pause because I was not sure if the $38.50 was only to keep them on retainer, and then every time we called them up, they would say, well, we have a consultant analyst working on this at $140 an hour, and he's going to work for $3, and really the 46.2 number would balloon to something much higher. Jamie and I had a Zoom call with a representative from Clemens Nelson, and his name's Andrew Esposito. They do this for Upper Arlington. They do it for a number of central Ohio and northeastern Ohio towns, and that was not the case at all. The $3,850 a month includes 24 hours a month on site. That could be, Jamie and I could choose for that to be exit interviews. We could choose for it to be working on a handbook. We could choose, and we had long discussions about, do we need to buy a computer for this individual? Do you typically bring your own? He did say most places provide us with a workspace. My concept is the workspace that used to be Rufus Hurst's office, immediately adjacent to my office upstairs, would be designated as a management consultant. I will say to the HR committee that as we look at this, most of the work that they will be doing will be helping Mr. Nicholson. And that's just how we have become, how our own HR has grown. What Mr. Esposito told us is that is incredibly common. You start as a small city, and most of the benefits packages and such are the purview of the finance department. So the finance department ends up being your HR. We discussed the fact that right now, the police department and the HR department, and the administrative HR functions are somewhat separate. We would like to pull them into one shop. For instance, Jamie does not get exit interviews from the police, nor does he house their official files. If there is an official, something put in a police file, whether it's a commendation or not, or something negative, that still resides within the police department. And we don't really have a centralized record of everybody that worked for the city. He obviously has it for Scott's shop and Alan's shop and Chris Schrock's shop, but we're looking to pull that into one location. Mr. Esposito said that's exactly the kind of stuff that they do. I was asked a question today, how do we know that they're being used enough? And I think that that's on the administration, that's on Jamie and myself. Within the framework of a month, we might have them looking at the handbook, doing exit interviews. We might have them doing benefits meetings with our own employees. Because right now, Janice used to do that. But that was only a function of Janice knowing the different people and how she grew into that position. I don't think that our vision is that Ann is in mainline is doing that. So utilizing them for that for benefits discussions as well. I believe that it has, and this is incredibly unscientific, and I realize that, but it has the exact same feel after meeting with him over Zoom that Nate Green had. He was, I realize he's in the business, and he went through things that we needed, and I think Jamie and I both thought that it was a very good meeting and felt much better afterwards, at least well enough to convene this group, and try to answer as many questions as I can. I realize that Jamie is a majority of those answers. We'll see if there are questions that this group has that I can't answer, and we might have to get it to you later. But would we be interested in moving forward with drafting an agreement to put on the agenda for council to engage Clemens Nelson as our HR consultant?
And I think also they could be a benefit to the finance committee that's looking at the police study, because we talked about wanting to maybe do some surveying as part of that group, some internal surveying for the police department. They could assist with that. Is that?
And I think we'll, much as we did with Montrose,
Yeah.
we'll have to find a point where we say, could you come in and survey all the members of the police department to see, are people leaving because of X or because of Y? And they may do that, but they may say that's a little bit outside of this scope. Mr. Walther had a great idea, and it's, well, if we've got something big enough and different, why don't you give us a proposal on that? And I'm all in favor of that.
Yeah. This is to get us started. We need this. We need HR. I feel like, to me, and then we'll go around the room, I just feel like not having, first off, it frees you and Jamie up. And I feel like it's a huge liability to the city that we don't have some type of an HR I think we're piecemealing. He's doing the best he can do,
Mhm.
but he's a finance guy.
I agree.
And it's kind of the same thing we lived. I know, Jude, you weren't here for, but when Scott and BJ were trying to do development, they just couldn't. They can't. You know, I think it's a great deal. Again, they come highly recommended, and I think that, in my opinion, I'm all in. I don't really have any other questions.
I would echo your statement. Most of HR, I would say 90% of HR is common sense and interacting with your employees. It's that 10% that is what kills you. You know, look, we don't know the regulation on this, or we get a harassment and we don't follow the harassment protocol, or we don't know how to investigate it properly. And
We're
we
too
end up,
big not to have some type of.
and we end up getting bit for that. And that's
Our first step might be a misstep.
correct.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's, yeah, I think that's what you mean.
And it saves us money too, because we're not hiring a full-time employee.
Yep.
That is true. We do have the budget in the, I would have to do exactly what we did with the economic development director. We'd have to shift this to, we'd have to shift the economic development, I'm sorry, my apologies. We would have to shift the human resources director money to contractual services, but that's not gonna be a problem.
I don't have any questions, Tim. I looked through it and I think it's a great proposal. I think it's a fair price, and I think that the sooner the better they can get started, is my opinion.
Okay.
If I can go next, I do have a couple questions. First, I have 3 services for public service employees. Are these all the same?
They
I
are.
assume they are.
Mine
They
printed
are.
that way too.
Yeah, it just seems like we had 3
Yeah.
copies in there, and that's okay.
It
I
did.
only
Mine
read
printed
one of them.
3.
My apologies. That's
alright.
I didn't have that. I was looking off my phone.
No problem. So I'm gonna go to the email that you provided, the email sheets.
Okay.
And the interesting one that I see in here is one from Andrew to you, Tim. When he talks about who would be here representing us or helping us, and he talks about either himself, Brian Butcher, who's their CEO, or Heidi Miller. And I don't know if you've talked with Andrew, great, but these other 2 that might be our recommended people, you know, if there's a feel for which one we would like more than the other.
I do not, mostly because I think we're gonna have to figure out what the task is.
Well, I'm getting to that in a second. Yeah,
So,
exactly,
so.
exactly. So, yeah, okay.
But our main point of contact, according to Andrew, would be him. And he would be the Nate.
Well, he's almost talking, I mean, the way I'm reading this is, they would be the ones that would be here. They're not just a contact, but that would be their on-site person. And that's what it says. It's discount blah, blah, blah. It says, on-site hours and standard monthly retainer rate to the, we would almost never assign our consultant level employee on-site for Pataskla, it would likely be myself, Brian Butcher, or Heidi Miller. So that to me means that either their director, their CEO, or this Heidi Miller, who I didn't really breeze through her write-up, would be one, we would want to at least know who they are if we haven't talked to them already. I mean, just get a feel for them. If we don't like one of them, we probably should be specific on who we want.
Maybe they do different things. There's so many parts
Or,
of HR.
or
they
just
might-
what your question was, maybe each one of them does something different that we
Yeah.
just don't understand at this point.
And I think that's probably correct.
Okay.
That's, but I also think, I don't know if that is something, my feeling is that we would come to that decision after they've been here, after they've been on site. And if maybe Heidi, we feel like Heidi's really good at one thing, but not really good at something else, we have the ability to make those shifts.
Okay, so now I'm getting to that point in the contract.
Okay?
So it doesn't say we have the ability to do that.
Well, there's a mea culpa here, if you wanna call it that. I think everybody in this group saw Brian's red line, review of this. We would need to make sure that maybe that's addressed, as well as Brian's concerns.
Two other ones.
Okay?
Right, just two other ones. I just want to kind of bring them out there because
Why not?
in here it does say again, the city, if it's determined that 24 hours is too much, then they could reduce the hours and a corresponding monthly rate by $150 an hour. So my question is, all right, when would that be evaluated? Because in the contract, it doesn't say that. It says at an anniversary date, 60 days prior. So is that done after 3 months, 6 months? At the anniversary date? When is that done?
So I asked the question in a different way
Okay.
of Mr. Esposito, and I think if I could paraphrase what he told me, it's not done at an anniversary date. It's done, for lack of a better term, on the fly. We don't think that we're not saying that we need you here as much as we originally thought, so we should back it down. I don't believe that if I understood what he told me, it doesn't have to conform to a automatic 3-month or automatic 4-month. If we decided if it happened in month 5, if it happened in month 2, he seemed very flexible about when that decision could be made.
Okay.
And it would be done with him and I and Jamie.
Okay.
If I could piggyback on that, because I actually thought, especially the first year, I'm thinking, man, they're gonna need more than that to get this built out and started and get a feel for things. But I kind of feel like if we get them in here, then next year they'll have a better idea of what they actually need.
I agree with you. I'm just trying
That's
to
why
figure out.
I saw that, but I thought that too, like, man, is 24 enough?
Well, is 24 enough or is it not enough?
Yeah.
I mean, is it too much? If we're still.
We'll know
if we're-
that.
If we have no problems, which I know we probably have problems, but if we have no issues, then this goes to my next question. It says on-site, and I'm to the management agreement, consultant agreement. It says in the indented paragraph number 2, it says on-site scheduled for consulting for 24 hours per month, semicolon, at a minimum of 6 hours per on-site throughout the duration of the agreement. I read this several times, and I don't know what that means.
I agree.
Okay.
That's something I think that's something that Brian,
Yeah.
He redlined that, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
and so if it's a 6 hour minimum each time they're here, that seems, that's how I would read this if I were trying to understand it. Is they're gonna be here 1 day per week for a 6 hour minimum that day.
that would make sense that they were going to be here for a month, 1 day, that's 1 day a week for 6 hours.
Correct.
Obviously, 6 times 4 is 24.
24, right, that's how I'm backing into it, but that certainly should be clarified. And then you go down to paragraph 5, and at the second to last sentence, a minimum of 4 hours will be billed for each on-site visit by the consultant. That's for extra work, so if we had him come out here and we had I don't know, we'll say a maintenance person was caught sleeping on a job, and we had a review, and that HR person had to come in and do a review immediately on them, and they're here for 20 minutes. I'm trying to pick something that isn't in this contract, isn't part of their HR scope.
I understand.
Are we gonna have to pay 4 hours?
We probably will, because I believe they've built in.
It seems fair, I mean,
I believe they've built in things like travel time, and if they have, first of all, I don't know if there's anything that's bad enough to make them come out immediately that can be fixed in 20 minutes.
well, let's just say fire them.
Well,
I'm not advising that, I'm just saying he could
no,
say.
I understand.
Or it's in their union contract that he's allowed to have a 20-minute snap, I don't know.
Right, but I think that is, to answer your question, the answer is yes, that is
Okay.
what that.
Okay, as long as everybody's okay with that, I mean,
I'm fine.
I just wanted to bring it up
It's reasonable.
as part of the negotiation to this. But, and to the point that you had made earlier, my last point would be, if we have special projects, such as in interviewing the police or not just police, I think we really need to broaden this to, so we're not looking like we're just doing, but I think we do it for all union and non-union. So we have we have 2 unions, right, and 1 non-union group. So I don't see why we wouldn't interview all 3 of them.
Yeah, we actually have 3. We have OPBA.
Okay, so we have plenty of unions, that's
We have,
good.
yeah, we do.
So
Steelworkers.
3 separate types that they interview and say, is everything working correctly? And I don't wanna just interview the police, but I think we could start there.
I just use that as an example, cause it's been discussed.
That could be a project. Okay, you guys over here, what do you think? What would that take to do that? Is it $5,000 total?
Right.
We can go forward with it. So I'd really like to try to, in the contract, I'd like to say that, or put in, or at least throw out to Zets, hey, is there a way to put in the contract to keep these rates and apply them to a special project without getting hit with, you know, in their services perspective here, the rates are, this rate, which would be, let's just say consultant, $140, plus $15 if you're, under a non-agreement. So I don't wanna pay $155 if I have an agreement, and I certainly don't wanna pay $140 plus $250 for their retainer, premium. Anyhow, I'm just trying to lock in those hourly rates for projects also.
Special
Does that make
project.
sense?
Yes.
I already got one for him, but I'll bring that up later. Special project.
Special projects.
So
Yes.
lock in the hourly rates, for special projects.
Yeah, we should get the benefit of being on a retainer to lock in the special, just to lock in those rates, rather than paying a $15 premium.
I
I
understand.
think that's fair.
I think it is. I
Okay.
think, and I think they would probably be amenable to
Okay.
that.
That's all I got.
I read it that way,
I-
that we did.
I didn't.
Okay.
But
Well,
that's
let's
okay. I
clean
mean,
it up.
it's just clarifying it,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm gonna say what Tony said. I think as fast as we can get them in here is the best. I really do. It's gonna be helpful for all different reasons, and, just like Nate was helpful for all the reasons he got in just at the right time with the reasons why we need him. I have a feeling it'd be best to have somebody in place for that, for an issue that would come up, or for, what we just talked about, you know, getting an interviewing done. And I think a third-party outside person is so much better than us trying to do it internally, without doubt.
Yeah.
We might get,
Well, yeah, and you can imagine, my list and Jamie's list is quite extensive. You know, we're about, I mean, this is the HR committee. Maybe we task these guys, and this is, I think I'm stealing Mr. Lee's thunder, but maybe we task these guys with assisting with the evaluations of myself, Mr. Zetz, and,
What the,
did I steal
come
it?
on, man.
I'm
You
sorry.
stole mine. Daggone.
I thought I said maybe I'm stealing it, I'm sorry,
No.
I'm sorry.
I'll bring that up in a minute, but that is exactly correct. That's where I was going with that, so.
So-
we
Now,
can keep them
what-
busy.
Now, the question is, when we talk to them, will that be a special project?
I don't know.
And that's what we'll have to learn moving forward and gauge. I would prep this group, because you'll be the first ones to see it, that I may not make the contract with them for just 42.6. I may make it for 60 or 50, anticipating that we might have a special project that I could pull out of the same line. But also realizing that I do have a $50,000 threshold on.
Well, and also, we just don't, I mean, I would also look to see what tasks they're gonna do on a weekly basis and how much they get done in 6 hours, because
I agree.
6 hours is a long time for someone to be
Well,
here,
and he made it
if
pretty-
they've got everything lined up and ready to go.
And
it's
he
probably
made
got
it
a
pretty
lot
clear that's 6 hours on site. There may still be other things as part of the retainer that happens that's not, you know. Pick up the phone and call them. Ask them specialized individual questions. That's not, I don't have to wait for somebody to show up.
They actually say they don't bill for that.
They don't bill for that.
Exactly, that's good, because that's what's gonna happen. We're gonna have a phone call for 2 minutes, and unlike an attorney that will charge you 30 minutes for that.
Correct. Which was another reason I was.
They will, and you guys, those are the pitfalls.
Yeah. I have one more thing, but I wanna give Jude the opportunity to weigh in.
I had a couple questions, but usually you guys cover them. So one of my questions was about email or in person and that, and it's right on here. So I found it when somebody else was talking. You wouldn't necessarily have to meet with them when they're here, right? There are other ways of conducting business with them.
Sure, and that happens with Montrose right now. You know, Nate, we have regular weekly meetings with Montrose. But they've been incredibly good about me sending them something and saying, hey, will you review this? Yep, it'll take me about a day. And so there absolutely would be other means by which we could converse.
And then on here it said, you answered me that this money is already set aside somewhere, this wouldn't be something new that we'd be coming up with. Where it says on here, contract, subject to renewal or termination by the parties, that's just it, it's straight out like a one-year contract, there's no in-between, there's no,
I believe in Brian's markup, he changed that to either side could terminate it with
Okay.
30 days.
okay.
At will.
And then, no, that was it. That was all I had.
Okay. The only other thing I just wanted to mention, when you brought up they were gonna have the office, beside you, Rufus's old office, I know the mayor was in there. Would we, would it be in our best interest to provide them with, the IT equipment as far, whether it's a laptop or
That's a good question.
whatever, so that we own whatever they're working? I mean, I'd want them to be able to I would think a laptop would make sense because they could work remotely, because they're only here one day a week, but I would think that would be equipment we'd wanna own, so we own what's in it.
Jamie asked that question.
Okay.
They all have laptops, they are all accomplished
Yeah.
at working remotely, but most places do exactly that.
Okay.
Most places connect them to their servers with a special means or whatever, so.
Are we gonna do that then? Are we planning?
That
to
would
do-
be part of it, yeah, I would wanna either purchase or find, and, a computer, a desktop and a computer and a way, they're obviously gonna have to look at, for instance, the S drive
Yeah.
to access the handbook or something like that. We would have to make sure that we get with Keytel and put the proper things in place to
Okay.
make sure that there's no trouble. But yes, you would see me probably coming to this group and saying, we're looking for a desktop, this is for, well, I don't know if I'd come to this group.
I don't know, I was gonna say if you
And
need,
that's not a purchase.
yeah, that's not something I think, but anyway. Well, with that being said, I'm just gonna make a recommendation to council that we, approve the Clemens Nelson proposal, as edited by Mr. Zetz.
I'm gonna second that motion.
Roll?
Lee,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes?
Hampshire,
Yes,
I'm sure, I didn't read all of Mr. Zett's red lines, but I didn't see any insurance requirements in this either, so,
Like being bonded.
exactly.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah, that's a good question. Last thing I just want to bring up, really quick, we can have discussion on it or not, but I just, Tim brought it up, but, as council leadership, I don't believe, I know we were half the year, well, I was vice president, and then, but I don't think evals of Tim, Brian, or,
I don't think we did any.
they didn't get done last year.
And I don't believe that they were done the year Mr.
I'll take the heat for that. I was president half the year, so whatever, it should have got done. So anyway, moving forward,
We filled out paperwork.
that wasn't last year. I don't think they got done. I really don't.
So,
It was set out, it just wasn't ever, I remember Mr. Barstow saying twice, hey, they're due.
Yeah,
And
but
then-
I've never seen it.
Not, I don't think Jamie's, but yours and, Mr.
Well,
Zett's.
I never received anything from council.
I agree. So anyway, whether they did or didn't, moving forward, I am going to, assuming council approves this, I'm gonna, reach out to Clemens Nelson, and see if they could, I mean, we still have to do the evals, council will still have to evaluate Tim, Jamie, and Brian, but I'm going to have them take the document and basically, council would get it electronically. Council would do the eval and send it back to them. And then, I believe, I've never been president before, but it would be Andy and I that sat down with the three of you once we get it back from them.
I can only speak to when I was president. and
But
the
you would
pres-
sit down with BJ or,
The president and the vice president usually divided. And so one of them would take the administrator position, one of them would take the finance position, and then I think both of them would sit in. I don't remember how the
when I was
evaluation.
vice president for you, I don't remember sitting in any of them. I remember helping you with them, but you were really good about crunching those numbers. It's a huge, I watched him do it. It is a huge undertaking, and especially when you get it back and and compiling it. So I fully intend on having this Clem and Nelson's assist with that. Do it that way. Let them compile it and hand us this back, and then you and I or me, we can divide and conquer. Then we can go sit down with the three of them and go, okay, here's your eval. But let Clemens Nelson do it because it's not efficient.
I would agree, and I would anticipate that they already have.
It's
I mean,
only
for all I know, you could give every council member a login, and they could just go in there and type.
Right.
So there is no paper, there is no, let me add this up, let me make sure this is right, let me cut and paste all these comments. You know, give it to me electronically. Some people would give them to me on paper only. I would have to go in and type them in.
Well, I think one of the concerns that I had at that time was too, the anonymity to putting them on. You know, if you do it under that term, you know, I believe that those handwritten notes and stuff were shown to whomever. And, you know, some of our printing and some of our engineering, printing might be very, very identifiable. I even went to great lengths to write in cursive, which I haven't done since
You know what, we may even
high
have,
school.
assuming it passes council and we get in this agreement, I may even have to have them do the past 2 years. I don't know.
I don't.
That
think
would be
we-
difficult.
I don't
It
think that
would
would be
be.
difficult because we have people. Well, I would say we would start fresh, and I would vote to start
I
today.
would-
And if you have comments from a year and a half ago, please include them.
But we're required to give you guys evals.
We are, you are, and I think it's important because whether it's our contract with Isaac Wiles, or whether it is renewal of a contract, my own contract, or Jamie's contract, when you have no baseline, it's very difficult to say, you know, well, we think you were doing a great job, and the person says, well, how great? Or we think you were not doing a great job. You know, those, it's very difficult to modify your behavior if somebody tells you, well, I thought you did pretty bad last year, and you said, you know, at the time of a negotiation. So it's a tool that's important for those three positions.
Well,
to-
I'm on top
for-
of it.
for
I'm not gonna let
feedback.
it go this year. I guess I just did.
It was
Shame
ver-
on me.
It was very
Uh,
chaotic. I don't think there's any finger pointing.
It didn't get done.
So I'm blaming Jamie personally.
I believe in you both. I think they're gonna do it. I think they're.
I'm not blaming anybody. You know what, Tommy? There's enough on everybody's plate.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is, and priorities. This will be one of them this year.
Yeah.
Period.
And we'll let
Leave it
them
at
help.
that.
Let them help us.
Yep.
All right. Anybody got anything else? Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Lee,
Yes.
Walter,
Yes.
Hampshire.
Yes.
I gotta run out. I didn't expect that to go that long. I'm hurting now. All right, guys. Good meeting. Appreciate you all.